Alright, so what we're looking at today are histograms and grouped data. Okay, so what that means, I don't think my computer's working today, hang on, just restart it. What that means is when we, instead of having a frequency table where we have just a number like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay, we actually group data together. So, for example, you might have a set of data which goes from 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 14, 15 to 19. And then we have a frequency of 3, 5, 6 and 2. Why did I use 0 to 4 rather than 0 to 5? A lot of people end up going, I'm going to go 0 to 5, and it doesn't work. Why did I go 0 to 4? Even though it looks a bit odd. Pardon?
Even groups.
Yeah, because they have to be even groups, okay? And if I go 0 to 5, it means that there's 6 numbers in each group. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so the next group would have to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So it would be 6 to 11. And then it'll have to be 12 to 17, and those sort of groups don't work. So often when we look at frequency tables where we've got group data, we either go 0 to 4, or we go 1 to 5, 6 to 10, and so on, or we go 0 to 9, 10 to 19, 10 to 19, and so on, or 1 to 10, 11 to 20. So always check. You always want to sort of, you can see that they're kind of consistent numbers, like 5, 10. They always go up in 5s or 10s usually. And if you look down the right hand side, it's like 5, 10, 15, 20. Or if you look down the left hand side, the 0 to 9, 10 to 19, it's 0, 10, and so on. So you should always sort of see a pattern there. So groups need to be even. Now, if we use a calculator for this sort of thing, if I put 0-4 into my calculator, it comes up with the number -4. Because it expects that if I write 0 to 4, it expects that I'm saying 0 take 4, and it works it out as a calculation, okay? So in our calculator, and when we're also working out some measures of central tendency from this, we can't use 0 to 4. It doesn't work because it's not an actual number. What number instead do you think we could use? Why 2? Someone said 2. Why 2? Because it's in the middle of them, okay? So whenever we're working out anything from data, group data, we use what's called the midpoint, okay? And this is what we really need to understand here. So when working out statistics from grouped data, we always use the midpoint of each group. Now the midpoint is the top score minus the bottom score divided by 2. So it's just the average of your range in each group. So for this first one, we could change it to being, we go midpoint 0 plus 4 divided by 2 is 2. It's halfway. 5 plus 9 is 14 divided by 2, the midpoint 7. 12 and 17. And so we use that midpoint to work out our measures of central tendency. And also, when our next lesson, when we do calculators on this, you'll always use that number. You won't even put in the 0 to 4, you'll just put in the midpoint. So the midpoint's really important. So any time you're working with stats or triple group data, you have to use the midpoint. So just a last bit on this, we will try and find the mean, mode, median from group data, just to make sure we understand. So just make sure you leave a gap down the left hand side so you can do a midpoint, okay? So if I say score is, let's go 0 to 9, 10 to 19, I won't make you go too far, 29, okay? 3, 4, 2. How would we find the mean, the mode, and the median? Sometimes, just so you know, mode will be called modal group. Okay? Julie? Yeah. So, how would I find the mode for this? What's the modal group? Which one has the highest frequency? 10 to 19, okay? So, modal group will just be 10 to 19. That was what you'd write. It's the group which it's in. It's still quite easy there. The median, how many scores are there? There's 9. Okay, so 9 plus 1 is 10, divided by 2 is 5. So the fifth score in there, the fifth score is in the 10 to 19 group as well. Okay, so it's within that group. It's the mean where the midpoint comes in. So, to find the mean, we need to find the midpoint. 0 to 9. What's halfway between 0 and 9? 4.5. 14.5. And 24.5. So, instead of using the score, the groups there, we now use the midpoint times by the frequency to work out the median this time. So, 3 times 4.5. Now I don't have my calculator on me, so you guys might need to work some of these out. I think it's 13.5, should be quite easy. 4 times 14.5. And 2 times 24.5. 49, okay? Could you add those numbers together for me, please? So, instead of using, because we can't use 0 to 9, instead we're going to find the midpoint in between them, 120.5. And to find the mean, let's put it down here. To find the mean, we then go 120.5 divided by 9. So 13.38 recurring. And that's our mean. What do you think is more accurate, when we put data into this, or if we had our 9 scores and I said like 3, 4, 5, 11, 12, 16, 17 and 21 and 25? What's more accurate if I found the mean of all the data as specific numbers compared to a mean of the data in groups? Which one's more accurate? So if I said this set of data is actually 7, 8, 9, 11, 13, 17, 19, 22 and 25. Okay, that was a set of data, but I grouped it first. So that's why I put it into groups. What would be more accurate, the mean I just found or the mean I found from that set of numbers? The numbers, okay? So be aware of that. In one of the WACE exams, I think it was last year, they had this set of data and it was like rainfall. So it had a whole heap of zeros in it. It was like 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 3, 17. And you had to then group it into data, and they found the mean. And the mean was a lot higher because they assumed that all those zeros was actually like 2.5, the midpoint of that group that was in, while actually there were lots and lots of zeros which would pull the mean down. So be aware that numbers are always more accurate, but when you've got hundreds of numbers, a lot of the time we group data to see some patterns. So that's why we have groups. Okay? The main thing I need you to get from this was, anytime you see a frequency table with group data, you need to use the midpoint to do all of the things you've already learned how to do. Okay? So such as the mean, the mode, the median. Alright? Any questions about that? Okay, we're going to move on to histograms. What's a histogram? It's like a bar graph, okay? A histogram is a way of representing information with frequency down the side, and it also has a scale down the bottom. Right? So there's scales on both sides. Frequency is always down the side. Now there's a heap of rules to do with histograms. You need to have columns which are the same width. Can you write this down, please? Columns, same width. This might be worth like 4 or 5 marks in the exam. You need to have a title. You need to have labels. You need to have a space at the start and at the end. See how there's a gap here and there's a gap here. Okay, you have to have a space at the start and the end. The midpoint of each column should be in the middle. I'm typing, so don't talk. That's okay. Alright, so midpoint of each column should be in the middle, and that's really important. We have to label those midpoints, okay? So in the middle of each column. That makes our histogram really easy to be able to do. So if we look at so you don't have to rewrite another table, we'll look at this one we did with the 0, 9, 10, 19, 20 to 29. So 3, 4, 2. You don't have to rewrite this, I'm just writing it so that we have it here. Okay, so we want to draw a histogram of this data. It means that we need to know these midpoints, so 4.5, 14.5 and 24.5. You've already written that down, you don't need to rewrite it. So we hopefully have a nice piece of graph paper, but anyway, we'll go without it for now. What we always do when we're drawing a histogram is we break the scale to start it. Break the scale means that we because a graph always starts at 0, okay? And for us to actually be able to have a gap at the start, see how our graph goes from 0 to 9? If I graph this from 0 to 9, it means that our first bit would be like this, and there's no gap at the start, is there? So instead, what we do is we break the scale. There's two ways of breaking the scale. We can draw two little dashes like this. That's usually the easiest way. You break it like that. The other way, which is a little bit more artistic, is you can draw it like this. Like that. That's also a broken scale. So either way is fine. You can only break the scale once, and you only ever break it at the start. And what it does is it means we can now start our scale wherever we want. I can now start here at 300 if I want to. I can start at whatever number. So I've just broken the scale and started it wherever I want to. A lot of the time though, you just want to restart it at 0 again, just so you've got that gap there. Okay, because one of the rules in a histogram is that you have to have a space at the start. And so if I put my graph starting at 0 on the line, there's no space at the start. So you have to have a space at the start. So if you just always break the scale at the start, you're never going to have an issue, because you can start it wherever you want it to be. Does that answer your question? Yeah, cool. Alright, so there's a couple of ways of doing this. I'm going to show you the easiest way first. Instead of putting in a 0 there, what we're going to do is we're going to draw our 3 columns first. So our frequency is 2, 3 and 4. So I'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright. I'm going to go, okay, the first one is 3. So I'd use a ruler and a pencil, and I'd draw that to 3, making sure they're all the same width. The next one I'm going to draw to 4, making sure it's the same width. The next one I'm going to draw to 2. That's not the same width. Next one to 2. Okay. My histogram's pretty much done there. What was the one point we said we needed to make sure we included? There's a space at the start and the end. The columns are the same width. We need to add in a title. So whatever the information is, we'll just say like cars in a car park or something. What else do I need to include? Pardon? The midpoint, okay, because at the moment this doesn't tell us any information down the bottom, does it? So the midpoint always has to be in the middle. So I can just go, okay, midpoint of this, 4.5. Midpoint of this, 14.5. Midpoint of this, 24.5. And I'm done. As long as the midpoint's in the middle, we're all okay. And that's a histogram. So as long as your columns are the same width and your midpoint's in the middle, that's the easiest way to draw a histogram. It's a little bit harder if you need to draw on a scale. So I'll show you that for the same information. If I drew this with a scale down the bottom, and I need to have a pretty big scale, I'm still going to break it. You start at 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Okay, if I draw it with a scale, can I just get everyone's eyes up quickly for me? With this, it goes 0 to 9 and then 10. Okay, where does 9.4 go? If one of the scores was 9.4 and I need to put it into this range of data, I need to put it into the data 0 to 9, 10 to 14, where would 9.4 go? It would go in 0 to 9. Okay? Where would 9.5 go? Into 10. Okay? And so what actually happens when we draw our histogram here, 9.5 is actually where the cutoff is. 9.5 is where the information goes below 9.5, it goes into the 9 column. Above 9.5, it goes into the 10 column. And so where our line for our histogram has to go is in between 9 and 10. The columns all interlap together. So our line here actually goes there, between 9 and 10. Not at 10, not at 9. There's a lot of histograms I see when I mark, I'll just show you what it looks like, do not do this, where it goes 0 to 9, and then they go 10 to 19, and 20 and so on. Histograms don't have gaps in the middle. Instead, we move this halfway and we move this halfway and they interlap. So they interlap at 9.5. So, 9.5 and 3. What about 0? Where do you think does it stop at 0? It actually goes back a half. So it actually should go to negative a half. It's just before 0. Because the numbers, anything below that will go up. So 9.5 goes to 19 and a half. And then 20 to 29 goes to 29 and a half. And again, you write your title and your frequency. Which one's easier to draw? The first one. So if there's no scale, definitely draw the first one. Just draw the columns, make sure they're the same width, and put in your midpoint. Otherwise, you have to think about making sure all of the lines interlap. Is everyone okay with histograms?